Okay, this is English 101, week 12 of the fall of, nope, of the spring of 2021 semester. Hi! I know, you just saw me last week, but this is the first video that I'm making specifically for you, the class that I am teaching in the spring of 2021. The reason for that, when you first, so this you're my 101 class. The videos you saw for the first chunk of this class, this is currently the spring of 2021. People are getting vaccinated against the COVID virus, and anyway, the videos that you saw in the for the first 2 units of Plato were filmed in the fall of 2020. That was like one semester ago. And then you saw videos that were the unit 3 about Plato, that final chunk of Plato where they talk about writing. And that was filmed even earlier in the spring of 2020. But this I am filming for you in the spring of 2021. And this is the first time I'm speaking to you where I actually know student names and things. You know, Mr. Wolf is in this class, and I can actually say the names of some of my students here. Okay, cool. This is going well. So what's going on? Okay, so since this is my first time talking to you in a number of weeks, since this is my first time really ever talking to you directly, to you specific students, this is the first time I've made videos in a couple of weeks, but anyway, I just wanted to do a quick recap of everything. So if you've gotten this far, a couple of things have happened. So this class has 4 units, of which you have completed 3. This is the beginning right now of unit 4. So units 1 and 2 were both filmed in the fall of 2020. And they covered they're about Plato's Phaedrus. Now, Plato's Phaedrus is divided into 3 sections. That's how you get Unit 1, Unit 2, and Unit 3. Unit 1 of Plato, which you guys saw, talked about how it's basically Phaedrus reads a speech from Lysias about how you should marry someone you're friends with and not someone who's in love with you, because people in love with you are crazy, and he has a bunch of reasons why. And then Socrates basically does his own version of making that same point. Unit 2 of the Phaedrus, the second part of the middle part of Phaedrus, Socrates says, oh boy, I should not have said things against love. Love is a goddess. That goddess is going to strike me blind. I need to say a bunch of things about why love is amazing. And so he gives a massive cosmic speech about love, which isn't even mostly about love. It's mostly a crazy theory of the universe involving reincarnation and souls that are like horses on a chariot. And then he says that love is sort of the force, the irrational force that leads us towards higher heavenly things by starting us off on a ladder where first we love a person, and then we realize we love lots of people, and then we realize we should love everybody, and then we realize actually more better than that is loving ideas, and then better than that is loving these kinds of cosmic heavenly whatever. And it's a ladder that goes all the way to the top. And then in the third section of Phaedrus, which is the unit 3 and the one that you just finished, Socrates finishes his speech, and then him and Phaedrus say, boy, we got some extra time today. It's too hot to walk back because they left the city to go to the country to have this conversation. This is too hot. So let's sit around and talk about what we've just discussed. So he says, let's talk about speeches in general. Like, well, how do you know a good speech? What makes a speech a good? Like we hear the speech from Lysias and then a speech from Socrates and then another really long speech from Socrates. He says, what makes a good speech good or bad? And then he says, how do we feel about writing? Like, a speech is something you say out loud to people who are standing in front of you. Writing is sort of like that. Is writing better or worse than? Anyway, have a whole conversation about that, and that's unit 3. And that's been the class so far. By the way, you've also seen me at a number of, I'm not sure actually where everything you've seen was filmed, but I think you may have seen my apartment in Brooklyn, and then also the Prospect Park. And then, my apartment indoors, the backyard of my apartment, Prospect Park, possibly my parents' house on the Upper East Side, and now I'm filming to you from a small town north of the city. This is because I moved in the middle of all of this insanity. So those 3 units, there was a paper for each unit. The paper 1, I gave you 3 quotes to pick from, and you picked a quote, and you wrote a whole essay about that quote, all that same stuff we do every week in here. The same thing you see me doing is the same thing I want you to do in your papers. It's you find a quote, you put the quote, you quote something, you put the quote in your own words, you use some examples to explain what the hell the quote's talking about, you introduce the book and the author, right? Plato's ancient Greek philosopher Plato writes in his book Phaedrus, and you can summarize the Phaedrus briefly, and then you can put the quote down. Then you can put your, sorry, let's start from the beginning. You say, hey, there's this guy Plato, and he's an ancient Greek philosopher, and he, wrote books of philosophy. One of the books he wrote was a book called Phaedrus. Phaedrus is a book, and then you say everything. You sort of summarize it in the beginning of, you can say it's a conversation between Socrates and Phaedrus where they discuss the nature of love and talk about Lysias's speech about love. And then Socrates gives a big speech about love, and then Socrates and Phaedrus sit around and discuss what makes a speech good or bad, and our speech is better than writing. Is it better to give a speech or write a book? And then you'd say, one part of this book, Plato writes, like, blah, 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 and you give me a quote. And you put that quote in your own words, you give me some examples to explain what the hell the quote means, and then you're going to tell me, how much do you agree or disagree with that quote? And why? Because you got to tell me your opinion, you got to give me a reason, and then you need some examples to back up your reasons. And that was paper 1 and 2. Right? I gave you some quotes to talk about, and you explained Plato to me, and you told me what was going on, and you explained the quote. You gave me some examples, and and then you gave me some examples, and then you told me your opinion on these quotes, and you gave me some reasons for those opinions, and you backed it up with examples, and that was paper 1 and 2. And if you want to get really advanced, you considered objections, meaning you said some people might disagree with me. Those people would say, and you see that right in the book. Because Socrates says love is great because it's a kind of madness that leads you to higher heavenly things. Some people would disagree with him. For example, Lysias would disagree with him. Lysias would say that you don't want to get in a relationship with crazy people because they do irrational things and they're dangerous to be around and they'll break your heart and ditch you for no reason. And then you can say, Lysias is wrong because, right, just like that. And if you think Lysias is right, you can say, Lysias says this, and I agree with him. Some people might disagree with me. Socrates, for example, would disagree with me and Lysias because Socrates would say, love is a powerful form of madness that's actually good for you. And that's how you write your papers. And that was paper 1 and 2. And by the way, all the papers in this class do that. All of them. And really, most of the papers in your college career will do something similar to what I'm teaching you to do in here. But that's the basic gist of it. And that's why I gave you that 101 handout that sort of summarizes what to do for papers. It has all of this kind of written down. The 101 handout is basically like moves you can make when writing essays. And you can find that under course content. It's on the first page of course content before you even get into any of the units, because it's like the first thing on there, because it's really the most important thing, even though it's short. So that was units 1 and 2, and you had paper 1 and you had paper 2, and you've done those already, so good. Now there was a paper 3. I don't know, I guess you would have already written it by now, the time you're seeing this, but maybe not. I actually don't remember. Check the due date on this thing. But there is the third paper. And the third paper is a little bit more like you pick your own topic as long as it's related to Phaedrus. So you get to find something in Phaedrus that you think is interesting and write a paper about it. And again, it's you're picking a quote that you think is worth discussing. Or a couple of quotes, different quotes. You quote more than one thing to make a paper longer. But you may pick a subject in Plato that you think is interesting. So, for example, he talks about the technology of writing. So you could do your paper about technology. And you could say Plato says this about writing, and it's very similar when you look at the internet, right? Internet is another form of technology that does similar things that Plato says that it does, or opposite things. I don't know, say whatever you want. But the point is, it's another paper where you do the same thing with the quotes, and you put the quotes in your own words, and you give examples to explain it. You tell me your opinion, and give me a reason, and give me examples, and maybe consider opinions. That's your paper. The paper 3 got slightly more complicated because there was some research involved. With paper 3, you're going to quote some other people to back you up, right? And we already talked about this. I think it was week 7 or 8. Week 8. I think it was week 8. That was the lesson where we talked about research and how to do research. Make sure you're quoting trustworthy sources. But that's the same thing that you've been doing. It's just that instead of quoting Plato, you quote, say, a recent philosophy professor who's talking about Plato. Or if you're talking about technology, you quote a technology expert. Or if you're talking about love, maybe you quote a psychologist on love. And what do you do when you have a quote? You put it in your own words. You give me some examples to explain what you're talking about and connect it to your argument. So that has been unit 1, 2, and 3 thus far. Paper 1, 2, and 3, unit 1, 2, and 3. So that was a brief review of what the hell we've been doing in here all semester. Now we are done with Plato, and we are done with Phaedrus. Unit 4 is moving us on to something else. And I will see you in the next video to talk about that.